Welcome everyone, Christine here with a video about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I know I'm quite late to the party with this one, but then again I'm a huge fan of the Mass Effect series, and I do certainly hope that BioWare does redeem themselves after the failure of Andromeda. Now with this video and other videos, I want to talk about squad mates in Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Which are the best squad mates, in particular in this video, from a gameplay perspective for Mass Effect 1. Now when I say gameplay, I'm not just talking here about combat, I'm also talking here about out of combat, because there are certainly some skills in Mass Effect 1, like decryption, hacking, that are important outside of a combat situation, and you do care about them. So without further ado, let's get started. Now at number 1 is, of course, or not Wrex, and I do want to emphasize that this list is not based on how I feel about the characters from a story perspective, how much I like them or how much I dislike them. Rather, it's purely about their gameplay benefits, and Wrex is top dog in Mass Effect 1. The reason behind that, it comes down to his weapon choices. Assault rifles and shotguns are the best weapons in Mass Effect 1. In particular, assault rifles are great from a straight up shooting experience, whereas shotguns have the Carnage skill, and Carnage can do a significant amount of damage. In fact, shotguns, from a special ability standpoint, the shotgun skill line is the best of the game. So if you can use shotguns on a particular character, like for instance with Shepard here, because he is a soldier, and I get Carnage over here. Carnage is a really good skill because it does a significant amount of damage as well as knocking enemies back. That's why it's so important. So Wrex wins that number 1 spot because he has good weapons and is, as a result of that, be able to do a significant amount of damage. But that's not really all there is to it. He furthermore has the combat armor skill line all the way to Master Shield Boost, giving him significant benefits in terms of his shields. He's also the most durable squad mate of all of them. He then has fitness, and fitness is a ridiculously powerful skill. Fitness basically makes him unkillable while the effect is on. And then, of course, he has Warp, which reduces the damage protection of a target. He also has some utility with things like Throw or Stasis, though I haven't spent a single point in Stasis because I'm not too fond of the skill line. And on top of that, he also has HP regeneration in the game. Now, HP regeneration can be useful if you don't want to spend Medigel, because it's not so important from a combat perspective, it's more so useful outside of combat when you're just trying to recover HP outside of combat, and not every squad mate has the ability to regenerate HP outside of combat. Wrex is an absolute monster on the battlefield. He is the most durable, the most powerful, the highest damage dealer of all squad mates. He doesn't have necessarily any great skills in combat, and he has no skills outside of combat, so he can't hack, he can't decrypt, but at the same time, he is your go-to partner from a pure combat perspective. By far and away the best squad mate that you can have on your side. He is very difficult to kill, he will do a lot of damage, and he will be able to regenerate a lot of the damage he actually ends up taking. And number 2, we have Garrus. Of course, Garrus would be very high on this list. He's always been a useful squad mate in Mass Effect. Now, Garrus doesn't have the same kind of durability or sheer weapon damage that someone like Wrex has, nor can he regenerate HP outside of combat. However, here's the things that Garrus does have. He has the entire assault rifle skill line and the entire sniper rifle skill line. Now, the sniper rifle skill line is not as great as one might think, and Garrus is something of a squishy squad mate. However, he does have a decent amount of weapon damage, which is not something that should be ignored, because assault rifles, with the assault rifle overkill skill, is going to be useful. But if it was just really weapon damage or combat ability, Garrus would be far lower on this list, unfortunately, because 1, he doesn't have the durability of some other squad mates, nor can he regenerate HP outside of combat. But here is the thing that Garrus does have. He is a nice middle ground between combat use as well as out of combat skills. So decryption, electronics, and to a degree first aid, though first aid is also something obviously you can use in combat. But here's the use with Garrus. He can hack with decryption and electronics. And electronics in particular give you extra hull points on, or restore extra hull points on your Mako when you use it. So Garrus can repair your Mako if you so need it. There are a bunch of benefits to having a squad mate that may not be so useful in combat, but obviously gives you some significant benefits outside of combat. And Garrus really fits that mold. He isn't the best squad mate from any perspective. He's not the best in combat. He's not the best outside of combat. Someone like Kaidan, for instance, can give you more out of combat or even in combat when we're talking about pure healing. But at the same time, Garrus does provide you a really good toolbox. If there is any particular downside, by the way, of both Garrus and Wrex, it's the fact that they use certain specific armor that only they can actually utilize. So there is a bit of a downside, because upgrading Garrus can be, well, something of a nuisance, getting, a good piece of armor for him to actually use. So that further contributes to him being squishy, but at the same time, the toolkit that he does provide is pretty good. And he will certainly do a decent amount of damage in combat with assault rifles. Now, sniper rifles are not as great on squad members, or not as great in general in Mass Effect 1, unfortunately, though Garrus does have some benefits, of course, with sniper rifles. And he does have a significant increase in accuracy, which actually does matter for both sniper rifles and assault rifles. So, good old Garrus, a trusty sidekick. More for the utility that he brings than just pure combat ability, but he certainly does have a decent amount of pure combat ability as well. And number 3 is Ashley Williams. Williams is a miniature Wrex, basically. She's not as good as Wrex, though she can certainly hold her own in a lot of ways in combat. She lacks the biotics that Wrex does have, but one of the things to mention about Ashley is that she will have gear far more readily available from an armor perspective than Wrex will, or Garrus will, because, hey, any human armor will work on Ashley, as it will on Liara, as it will on Kaidan. Now, here's the thing about Ashley. She has the entire combat skill line, so she has access to Carnage, giving her a great deal of power in combat. She also has access to assault rifles. This is the similarity she shares with Wrex. She also does have the immunity skill line, as well as the soldier skill line, which gives her extra health and HP regeneration. She also has access to first aid, though first aid without medicine just isn't as good. But all the same, she does have the ability to heal you. But you don't want to use Ashley as a healer. Like, you could invest some points in first aid, as I have over here, to use it in situations where you might like, okay, let's go with both Ashley and Wrex. Though, of course, in that situation, you're going to miss out on someone being able to decrypt and hack objects. But Ashley does have all the weapon types, so you can customize her from a weapon standpoint in a lot of ways. And she is going to be pretty handy with both shotguns and assault rifles. She has combat armor, she does have assault training, she has fitness. She is a combat character, really. Similarly to Wrex, not as good as Wrex, basically discount Wrex. That's how you could view Ashley in a lot of ways. Though there's something to be said about having versatility in equipment that you just don't have available to Wrex. So Ashley Williams, number 3 on this list. And number 4, we have Tali Zora. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by it myself. Now, Tali is a bit squishy as a character, and she does have the issue where getting armor for her requires specific Lorem armor, so it can be a bit of a problem getting gear. Here's the thing, though. While getting armor for her is annoying, she is incredibly useful both in combat and outside of combat. She's incredibly good against Geth in particular, and you'll be fighting plenty of them because she can hack them. But on top of that, she does have shotguns with Carnage. Now, some people don't necessarily think the world of Carnage. I absolutely do, because it knocks enemies back, it does a lot of damage, it can be incredibly accurate if you aim it. Tali doesn't have assault rifles, so she is going to be weaker on a long range because of that. Yes, pistols are decent, but pistols are not assault rifles. So lacking assault rifles can be a bit of a downer, as is the issue with armor. But when you look at it, when you look at Tali's skill line, she's got some really good shield capacity. She can hack Geth, and she has all 3 major utility skills: first aid, electronics, and decryption. She is lacking medicine, which can be a bit of a downer when you're looking at healing, so she's not going to be able to heal your squad up as much as, say, someone like Kaidan, who does have medicine, and medicine does give you more access to first aid, so just reduces the cooldown over there. But when it comes to having the ability to heal, having the ability to hack with electronics, having the ability to use decryption on objects, Tali has all of that. She can repair your vehicle very well. She does have a good amount of damage in combat. She's just really lacking in the survivability aspect. She's gonna be pretty squishy, but she is more of a utility character that has some teeth because of the shotgun skill line that she has access to. Just don't expect her to stand up very well in a prolonged firefight, but at the same time, she will heal your party and she will allow you to hack a great deal of things, and she can do decent amounts of damage. At number 5, we have Kaidan Alenko, and I'll be honest, I was considering putting Kaidan up higher on this list, but he doesn't have any weapon skill, so him with weapons, he's gonna be pretty weak, all things considered. Yes, Sentinel does give him pistol damage and pistol accuracy, and Kaidan does have both a biotic amp and an Omni tool upgrade. So if I go over here to equipment, he does have an amp as well as an Omni tool upgrade, which not every character does have, just worth pointing out. So he is useful from being able to use both of those. He also has the medicine skill, so you can pump first aid kits like no one else can. Problem is, he's just not going to do a lot of damage in combat, and he's really a support character with throw and lift and barrier. He can survive at some damage courtesy of barrier, but it's not necessarily going to be as great as having a lot of HP, for instance. It's better to have a lot of baseline HP in Mass Effect 1 as opposed to having a lot of shields. Kaidan is more focused on having the barrier. But like Tali, he does have the ability to hack with decryption and electronics, and he does have a really good amount of healing that he can do quite often courtesy of first aid and medicine. You could consider Kaidan to be higher on this list because, let's face it, when you're playing Mass Effect 1, what you're really going to do most of the time, you're not going to level up Tali. Like, you're not going to have everything, access to everything like this on Tali until you're really later in the game, which obviously can be a bit of an issue. Like, this particular save is fairly late in the game, just before Vermeer. And I've done a lot in this campaign, so it can take you a long time to unlock everything here, whereas with Kaidan, you can just focus on his support skills and have him in your party to, you know, hack, to unlock things, and to also heal. Or you could just focus on decryption and electronics and bring someone else for the sake of healing in your party. There's always trade-offs when it comes to squad mates in Mass Effect 1. There's no one necessarily that there's no squad mate that is completely useless. There are just some better than others in a lot of situations. Like Wrex is really good because he will just annihilate enemies. Kaidan's really good to have in your squad because he will be able to unlock all the juicy loot boxes that will be lying around. That's his role in your party. And finally, in last place, it is Liara Tassoni. Now, it should go without saying that for a list like this, I am only really considering the highest difficulty. On a lower difficulty, it doesn't really matter who you're choosing. But on the highest difficulty, it absolutely does. And Liara just doesn't work well with the playstyle that is the best on Insanity in Mass Effect 1. The problem is, for Liara, she lacks any kind of weapon buff. Her entire skill line is lacking weapon buffs. On top of that, she's also really squishy. I think she has the lowest HP. She has no armor skill in the game. She has no weapon skill. And the idea is that she's supposed to make up for that with biotics, right? Barrier increasing her survivability, warp singularity, and throw, as well as lift, giving her an edge in combat. The problem is, enemies in Mass Effect 1 can be extremely durable, very hard to take down, so you can throw a lot of biotics at an enemy and they'll just shrug it off. They won't be so quick to shrug off a full Carnage round to the face, as is the case with, say, Wrex, or Shepard himself, or Ashley Williams, or Tali. Kaidan has issues, but at least Kaidan does have benefit to his pistols. Liara doesn't have any kind of benefit when it comes down to it. Sure, she does have both electronics and first aid, so she's not completely useless to actually bring as a squad member, but she is the least useful from a combat perspective, and she doesn't offer enough utility to make up for that. Kaidan has more utility, Tali has more utility, Garrus has more utility than she does, and all of those guys are better in combat. I think Liara's squad member design was just lacking. She does have one major advantage as a squad member, one that shouldn't be ignored, because ultimately equipment is pretty important in Mass Effect 1, and that is she can wear human armor, specifically light human armor, of course, but she can wear human armor, and human armor is going to be the most plentiful. She's not useless, I would not argue that, but she is as close to being useless as you get with companions in Mass Effect 1. And keep in mind that Mass Effect 1 is actually the most balanced when it comes to this. There are games in this, there are companions in this series that are actually useless in Mass Effect 2, and even Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda. But that's a discussion for another time. For now, Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications, and I hope I haven't pissed you off too much with this list. Just bear in mind, it isn't based on how I feel about the characters from a storyline perspective. It's not about how their storylines are portrayed or done, how I feel about voice actors, just purely gameplay perspective. Stay tuned for more, everyone.